Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from Gone Legends. In today's video, we'll be highlighting American celebrities who passed away today, and in recent days, along with other notable individuals from around the world. Before we proceed, we kindly ask for your support. If you find these tributes meaningful, please take a moment to like this video. It truly means a lot to us. Thank you for being here. And now, let's begin. 1.
Blake Garrett. Blake Garrett passed away on February 8, 2026, at the age of 33. The official cause of his death was not publicly confirmed, with reports stating that his family was still awaiting further medical clarification following a sudden health emergency. His passing came as a shock to many who remembered him as one of the bright young faces of early 2000s family cinema. Born in 1992 in the United States, Blake Garrett grew up with a natural love for performance. From an early age, he stepped onto stages with confidence that seemed far beyond his years. Before the bright lights of film sets, there were community theaters and local productions where he learned the discipline of storytelling, how to hold a pause, how to deliver a line with feeling, how to make an audience laugh without forcing it. He became widely known for his role as Plug in the 2006 family comedy How to Eat Fried Worms. In that film, Blake captured the chaotic, fearless energy of childhood. His performance felt genuine and unfiltered, which is why so many young viewers saw themselves reflected in him. It was the kind of role that becomes part of a generation's memory. Though he stepped away from major acting roles later in life, Blake Garrett remained a symbol of youthful spirit and cinematic innocence. His death reminds us how fragile life can be even for those who once seemed larger than life on screen. What he leaves behind is not just a credit in a film, but a memory stitched into childhood for countless viewers.
2.
Kumbulak Gürkem Arslan. Kumbulak Gürkem Arslan died on February 11, 2026, at the age of 45. According to Turkish media reports, the cause of death was a heart attack. The news spread rapidly across Turkey and beyond, leaving fans stunned by the sudden loss of a powerful and respected actor. Born in 1980 in Turkey, Arslan built his career through dedication, patience, and undeniable presence. He studied acting formally, refining his craft before stepping into the demanding world of television drama. Unlike actors who chase rapid fame, Kumbulak carved his path slowly, earning each role through hard work and depth of performance. He became widely recognized for his roles in popular Turkish television series, where he portrayed complex characters with emotional weight. His performances carried intensity, but never at the cost of humanity. Whether playing figures of authority or layered dramatic roles, he brought authenticity that resonated deeply with audiences. Viewers believed him, and that belief is the highest compliment an actor can receive. Kumbulak Gürkem Arslan was more than a familiar television face. He was a craftsman of emotion. His sudden passing feels like a story cut short in the middle of a powerful scene. Yet his legacy continues in the characters he brought to life, characters that will continue to speak long after the final credits roll.
3.
Jung Yoon-woo. Jung Yoon-woo passed away on February 11, 2026, at the age of 39. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed, and his family requested privacy during a time of profound grief. His unexpected passing deeply affected fans across South Korea and internationally. Born in 1986 in South Korea, Jung Yoon-woo entered the entertainment industry with steady determination. He was not an overnight sensation. Instead, he built his career through consistent performances in television dramas. Over the years, audiences came to recognize his face not just as an actor, but as a reliable presence in storytelling. His roles often reflected emotional sincerity. He had the rare ability to portray vulnerability without weakness, strength without arrogance. Through series appearances spanning nearly 2 decades, Jung grew alongside his audience. Viewers watched him evolve from young supporting roles into more mature characters, each one layered with realism. When news of his death broke, fans expressed shock and disbelief. For many, he was a comforting presence on screen, someone who appeared in living rooms week after week. Jung Yoon-woo leaves behind a legacy of quiet consistency and heartfelt performance. His story reminds us that impact is not always loud. Sometimes it is built scene by scene, over years, until it becomes unforgettable.
4.
King T. Leatherberry. King Taylor Leatherberry died on February 10, 2026 at the age of 92. Reports confirmed that he passed away at his home, marking the end of a long and legendary life in American horse racing. Born in 1933 in Maryland, United States, Leatherbury became one of the most respected thoroughbred trainers in North American racing history. His journey into the sport was not simply about competition, it was about devotion. From early mornings at the barn to decades spent at racetracks, his life revolved around horses and the discipline required to train them. Over the course of his career, Leatherbury trained horses that won more than 6,500 races and earned tens of millions of dollars in prize money. But statistics alone cannot explain his impact. He was known for identifying potential where others saw none. He developed champions not only through skill, but through patience and understanding. In 2015, he was inducted into the National Museum of Racing's Hall of Fame, a recognition of decades of excellence. Yet those who knew him often described him not just as a Hall of Famer, but as a mentor and a guardian of racing tradition. King T. Leatherbury's passing represents the closing of an era. His legacy lives on in the horses he trained, the people he mentored, and the enduring respect he earned across generations.
5.
Giancarlo Dettori. Giancarlo Dettori passed away on February 9, 2066 at the age of 93. Italian media confirmed that he died peacefully in Milan, with reports indicating that his death was due to natural causes associated with age. His passing marked the end of a remarkable era in Italian theater and cinema. Born on April 5, 1932, in Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy, Giancarlo Dettori grew up during a time of profound change in Europe. From an early age, he showed a deep interest in literature and dramatic expression. Determined to pursue acting professionally, he enrolled at the prestigious National Academy of Dramatic Arts in Rome, where he refined his technique and developed the discipline that would define his career. Dettori became widely recognized for his long-standing association with Milan's renowned Piccolo Teatro. For decades, he performed in classical and modern productions, bringing to life works by Shakespeare, Goldoni, and Brecht. His stage presence was powerful yet controlled, marked by emotional intelligence and intellectual depth. In addition to theater, he appeared in Italian films and television series, further expanding his influence across generations of viewers. Giancarlo Dettori was not only admired for his performances, but also respected as a mentor and cultural figure. His dedication to the craft elevated Italian theater, and his voice became part of the nation's artistic memory. With his passing, Italy lost a master of the stage, but his performances remain preserved in the rich legacy he leaves behind.
6.
Mark Smith. Mark Smith died in February 2026 at the age of 51. His passing was publicly confirmed on February 10, 2026, though the cause of death was not widely detailed in initial reports. The news was met with sorrow, particularly in his hometown of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Born in 1974, Mark Smith grew into a powerful athlete whose dedication carried him to the highest level of American football. He played college football at Auburn University, where his strength and determination made him a formidable defensive presence. His work ethic eventually earned him a place in the National Football League. Smith played professionally as a defensive tackle for teams including the Arizona Cardinals and the Cleveland Browns. The defensive line is a position that demands resilience, toughness, and sacrifice, rarely glamorous, but absolutely essential. Mark embodied those qualities. He was the kind of player who did the difficult work in the trenches, enabling the stars around him to shine. Beyond the field, he remained connected to his roots. Local reports remembered him as a proud representative of Vicksburg, proof that dedication and discipline can carry someone from a small hometown to the national stage. Mark Smith's life reflects the spirit of perseverance. Though his time was shorter than expected, the impact of his journey from Mississippi fields to NF stadiums remains a powerful testament to determination and strength.
7.
Chris Gilbert. Chris Gilbert died on February 9, 2026 at the age of 79. While detailed medical information surrounding his death was not widely disclosed, news outlets confirmed his passing and paid tribute to his extraordinary athletic legacy. Born in 1946 in the United States, Chris Gilbert rose to prominence as one of the most outstanding running backs in college football history. He played for the University of Texas, where his name became legendary. Gilbert made history as the first NTA player to rush for more than 1,000 yards in 3 consecutive seasons, a groundbreaking achievement at the time that redefined expectations for collegiate athletes. His explosive speed, vision on the field, and ability to break through defensive lines earned him national recognition. In 1968, he was named a consensus All-American, and later he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, solidifying his place among the sport's greatest figures. Though he also played professionally, it was his collegiate career that cemented his legacy. Beyond the statistics, Chris Gilbert represented excellence built on discipline and humility. Teammates often described him as focused and hardworking, never allowing fame to overshadow dedication. His passing closed a chapter in football history, but his record-breaking seasons and influence on future generations of athletes ensure that his name will never fade from the sports story.
8.
Edward Linda Lubasenko. Edward Linda Lubasenko passed away on February 8, 2026, at the age of 86. Polish media confirmed his death, though specific medical details were not publicly emphasized. His passing was deeply felt throughout Poland's theater and film communities. Born on August 23, 1939, in Białystok, Poland, Edward grew up during one of the most turbulent periods in European history. Despite early challenges, he discovered a passion for performance and ultimately chose to dedicate his life to acting. He graduated from the Ludwik Solski Academy for the Dramatic Arts in Kraków, one of Poland's most respected institutions for theater training. Over the course of several decades, Edward became one of Poland's most recognized actors. He appeared in numerous films, television series, and theater productions, often portraying complex characters with moral depth and emotional nuance. His performances were known for their intensity and realism, making him a familiar and respected presence on Polish screens. In addition to acting, he also worked as a teacher and mentor, guiding younger generations of performers. His influence extended beyond individual roles. He helped shape modern Polish dramatic performance. Edward Linda Lubasenko's legacy is one of resilience, dedication, and artistic integrity, a legacy that continues through the countless stories he helped bring to life.
9.
Neven Efe. Neven Efe passed away in February 2026 at the age of 78. Turkish news outlets confirmed her death, though specific details regarding the cause were not widely publicized. Her passing saddened audiences who had followed her career for decades. Born in 1947 in Turkey, Neven Efe entered the world of acting during a period when Turkish television and cinema were expanding rapidly. She built her reputation through steady work in television dramas and film, becoming a respected and familiar figure within the industry. Throughout her career, she appeared in several popular Turkish series, often portraying strong maternal figures or emotionally grounded characters. Her performances carried warmth and sincerity, qualities that resonated deeply with viewers. She had the ability to make her roles feel authentic, whether in dramatic storylines or character-driven productions. Colleagues described her as dedicated and professional, someone who approached every role with seriousness and respect for the craft. Her career spanned decades, and her presence became part of Turkey's evolving television culture. Neven Efe's death represents the loss of a seasoned performer whose work contributed quietly but meaningfully to the industry. Though she may not have sought international headlines, her impact within her home country remains significant. Her performances continue to live on, reminding audiences of the enduring power of heartfelt storytelling.
10.
Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. was born on August 17, 1943, in Manhattan, New York City, United States. He was born into a home filled with art, but also filled with fracture. His father, Robert De Niro Sr., was an abstract expressionist painter of remarkable talent. His mother, Virginia Admiral, was a painter and poet. Creativity ran through the walls of their apartment like electricity, but so did instability. When Robert was just 2 years old, his parents separated. The reason was complicated and painful. His father, struggling with his identity as a gay man in a time when society was merciless toward such truths, left the marriage. It was not a dramatic explosion. It was not screaming. It was something quieter and in many ways more devastating. It was absence. And absence, for a child, can feel like a storm that never quite ends. Young Robert grew up primarily with his mother in Greenwich Village, a neighborhood alive with artists, musicians, poets, and dreamers. On the surface, it was a place of freedom and imagination, but for a quiet, sensitive child with pale skin and red hair, It could also be cruel. He was nicknamed Bobby Milk, not as a compliment, as a reminder that he was different, smaller, softer. He was shy, withdrawn, observant. He didn't command attention, he studied it. He watched how people moved, how they spoke, how they masked their insecurities. He absorbed emotions the way other children absorbed sunlight. And inside him, something fragile was forming. The separation of his parents left a silent ache, though he remained close to his father throughout his life. The early fracture carved a deep understanding of loneliness into him. He would later channel that loneliness into characters who felt isolated from the world, men standing in crowded rooms yet utterly alone. But at the time, it was just confusion. Just a boy wondering why things break. He attended Little Red Schoolhouse, then Elizabeth Irwin High School, and later the High School of Music and Art. But stability eluded him. He dropped out at 16, not because he lacked intelligence, but because traditional structure felt suffocating. He wandered, and wandering can be dangerous. New York in the late 1950s was not gentle. It was gritty, restless, alive with both opportunity and risk. De Niro drifted into street groups in Little Italy. Nothing too criminal, nothing headline-making, but close enough to feel the pull, close enough to understand how easily a life could tilt in the wrong direction. He has often spoken about how acting saved him, but before it saved him, it tested him. He enrolled at the Stella Adler Conservatory and later studied under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. This was not glamorous. It was grueling. Method acting required emotional excavation. It demanded that you dig into wounds you might prefer to forget, and De Niro dug deep. He did not explode onto the scene. There was no overnight transformation. His early career in the 1960s was marked by small roles, experimental films, projects that barely flickered at the box office. He questioned himself constantly. Was he good enough? Was he too quiet, too strange, too intense? Hollywood did not immediately open its gates. It barely noticed him at first. Then came one of the first major turning points, Mean Streets in 1973, directed by a young Martin Scorsese. It was raw, it was electric, it was alive with danger. De Niro's portrayal of Johnny Boy was unpredictable, volatile, magnetic. But success does not erase fear. In fact, sometimes it magnifies it, because now expectations were attached to his name, and expectations can suffocate. Then came The Godfather Part 9 in 1974, playing the young Vito Corleone. A role immortalized by Marlon Brando was not an opportunity. It was a mountain, a terrifying one. To follow Brando's footsteps was to risk comparison, ridicule, collapse. De Niro did not imitate Brando. He studied Sicilian dialect. He lived in Sicily. He transformed physically and emotionally. And when the film was released, the world realized something undeniable. This was not just another actor, this was a force. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. But even that triumph did not quiet the storms inside him. Because Robert De Niro has never chased comfort. He chased truth, and truth can destroy you. In 1976, Taxi Driver arrived. Travis Bickle was not a hero. He was not charming. He was fractured, alienated, a man spiraling through insomnia, paranoia, and violent fantasy. De Niro lost weight. He drove a cab to prepare. He lived the isolation. "Are you talking to me?" That line became iconic, but what people forget is the darkness behind it. To inhabit that character required stepping into mental instability, into despair, into the psychology of someone unraveling. And when you live in those spaces long enough, they follow you home. De Niro became known for transformation, for obsession, for commitment that bordered on self-punishment. For Raging Bull in 1980, he gained nearly 60 pounds to portray Jake LaMotta in his later years. He trained as a real boxer. He allowed himself to look ugly, brutal, broken. The physical toll was immense. The emotional toll was greater. Jake LaMotta was violent, jealous, self-destructive. To embody that rage required De Niro to open doors inside himself that most people keep locked forever. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor. But awards do not repair exhaustion. In the years that followed, the pressure mounted, fame grew heavier. Relationships strained. His marriage to actress Dion Abbott eventually ended in divorce. The spotlight intensified. Privacy shrank. He became more guarded, more private, more careful with words. Some called him distant, some called him difficult, but perhaps he was simply protecting what little remained untouched. The 1990s brought triumphs, Goodfellas, Casino, Heat, but also creative risks that did not always succeed. Not every film soared. Some stumbled. Critics can be ruthless when a legend falters, and legends are not allowed to fail quietly. Financial challenges also emerged. Business ventures, including restaurants and film projects, carried risks. The entertainment industry is not kind to complacency. It demands reinvention. Through it all, De Niro remained working, constant, relentless. Then life tested him in ways no script ever could. In 1998, he was questioned by French police during an investigation, though he was never charged with a crime. The experience was humiliating and deeply frustrating. To have one's name publicly associated with scandal, even without wrongdoing, leaves scars. It reinforced something already present in him, a distrust of exposure. Yet he endured. In later years, he faced personal challenges involving family, including legal and emotional complexities that tested him privately. Parenthood brought joy, but also responsibility, worry, and vulnerability. And still, he kept going. Because Robert De Niro's life is not the story of a man who avoided darkness. It is the story of a man who walked straight into it, again and again, and returned with art. The boy once called Bobby Milk grew into a performer who could command silence with a glance. The shy child who watched from the sidelines became one of the most studied actors in cinematic history. But the storms never fully vanished. They became fuel. And in that fuel, a legend was forged. This is only the beginning of his story. Fire in the silence, there are actors who perform, and then there are actors who disappear. Robert Anthony De Niro, Jr. did not simply step into roles. He dissolved into them as if his own identity were something flexible, something he could fold away and store in a quiet corner while another soul took control. But that kind of surrender is never without consequence. Every transformation costs something. Every immersion leaves a mark. By the early 1980s, Robert De Niro was no longer a rising star. He was a benchmark. Directors did not just want him in their films. They built their films around him. Writers shaped characters knowing only he could breathe life into them. Studios trusted his name to carry weight. Audiences trusted his eyes to reveal truth. And yet, behind the prestige, there was fatigue. Raging Bull had demanded everything from him. He had trained like a professional fighter, stepping into actual boxing rings, taking real punches, pushing his body beyond comfort and safety. When the cameras stopped rolling, he did not simply return to normal life. He carried Jake LaMotta's volatility inside him. The rage lingered, the paranoia lingered, the heaviness lingered. Success can be isolating, and De Niro was never a man who courted the spotlight. He avoided talk shows. He avoided unnecessary interviews. He did not enjoy small talk or self-promotion. While other actors built public personas, De Niro withdrew deeper into privacy. The world knew his characters more than it knew him, and that distance sometimes created misunderstanding. Some critics described him as aloof. Some collaborators found him intense, even intimidating. But what they were witnessing was not arrogance, it was concentration. It was a man protecting the fragile space where art is born. Then came the king of comedy in 1982. Rupert Pupkin was awkward, delusional, desperate for fame. It was a dark satire years ahead of its time. The film did not perform well at the box office. Audiences were confused. They expected another tough anti-hero, another explosive personality. Instead, they were given discomfort. For the first time in years, a project attached to De Niro stumbled publicly. Failure is different when you are unknown. It is almost invisible. But when you are at the peak, every misstep is magnified. Headlines grow louder. Expectations grow heavier. Doubt creeps back in, even when you try to silence it. But De Niro did not retreat from risk. He continued choosing roles that demanded complexity over comfort. In Once Upon a Time in America, he portrayed David Noodles Aronson, a man shaped by crime, loyalty, betrayal, and regret. The film spanned decades, weaving youth and age together in a tapestry of consequence. De Niro did not play a hero. He played a flawed human being, burdened by memory. Memory is a powerful theme in his career. So many of his characters are haunted by guilt, haunted by violence, haunted by choices they cannot undo. And perhaps that is why his performances feel so real. Because he understands the weight of history. He understands that no life moves forward without scars. The late 1980s and early 1990s marked a powerful resurgence. In 1990, Goodfellas arrived like a lightning strike. As James "Jimmy the Gent" Conway, De Niro was calm, controlled, calculating. He did not need to shout to be terrifying. A subtle glance was enough. A pause was enough. The film became a landmark in American cinema. And once again, De Niro stood at the center of cultural conversation. Then came Cape Fear in 1991, where he transformed into Max Cady, a man consumed by vengeance. He altered his body again. He paid for dental work to create a menacing grin. He covered himself in tattoos. He spoke with a southern drawl soaked in threat. To play Cady required entering a psychological abyss. The character was relentless, predatory, patient in his cruelty. De Niro committed fully, even allowing himself to be physically restrained during filming to heighten authenticity. When audiences watched him on screen, they felt fear, genuine fear. But fear is exhausting to embody. Around this time, his personal life continued to evolve. He married actress Grace Hightower in 1997, a relationship that would experience both deep love and painful separation. They would divorce, reconcile, divorce again. The public often speculates about celebrity marriages, but behind every headline are real conversations, real disappointments, real efforts to repair what breaks. Marriage is not a script. It has no director, no retakes. De Niro also stepped behind the camera. In 1993, he directed A Bronx Tale, a story deeply personal to him, rooted in the neighborhoods of his youth. The film was not just entertainment, it was memory, it was a reflection, it was a tribute to the streets that shaped him. Directing revealed another dimension of his artistry. It required patience, vision, trust in others. It demanded vulnerability in a new way. Then, in 1995, Heat brought him face-to-face with Al Pacino in a cinematic showdown that would become legendary. Two masters sharing the screen. Two opposing forces meet in a quiet diner scene that crackles with unspoken tension. De Niro's character, Neil McCauley, was disciplined, solitary, and methodical, a criminal who lived by strict rules, believing attachment was weakness. Don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner. It was a powerful line, but it was also a philosophy that carries loneliness at its core. As the years passed, De Niro began exploring comedy more openly. Analyze This in 1999 revealed a surprising dimension of his talent. Watching the man who once embodied Travis Bickle now portray a mob boss seeking therapy was both refreshing and brave. Comedy can be more vulnerable than drama. It requires timing, humility, and the willingness to laugh at oneself. Some critics questioned the shift. Some fans resisted it, but De Niro refused to be imprisoned by his own legacy. He expanded, he experimented, he evolved. The early 2000s brought Meet the Parents and its sequels, introducing him to a new generation. To many younger viewers, he was not the violent anti-hero of the 1970s. He was the intimidating but humorous father-in-law. He was stern, expressive, and unexpectedly funny. Reinvention is survival in Hollywood, yet even reinvention cannot shield a person from real-world storms. Business ventures fluctuated. The Tribeca Film Festival, which he co-founded in 2002 following the devastation of the September 11 attacks, was born from tragedy. Lower Manhattan had been wounded, tourism declined, spirit dimmed. De Niro chose action over despair. Tribeca was not just a festival. It was a statement. It was resilience. It was a way of saying that art would not disappear, that community would not surrender to fear. The festival grew, becoming a symbol of creative endurance. And still, time marched forward. Aging is another transformation. No actor can escape. Roles change. Energy shifts. Reflection deepens. De Niro entered his later decades with quiet dignity. Films like Silver Linings Playbook showcased warmth and emotional complexity. The Irishman in 2019 reunited him with Martin Scorsese once more. The aging technology allowing him to portray decades of life within a single narrative. The Irishman was not flashy, it was contemplative. It was about regret, mortality, and the slow fading of power. Watching De Niro as Frank Sheeran, sitting alone in a nursing home, waiting for visitors who may never come, felt almost meta. It was not just a character aging, it was a meditation on time itself, time which humbles everyone. Time, which turns even the strongest voices softer. Robert De Niro's career has spanned more than 5 decades. He has won 2 Academy Awards. He has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He has become a reference point in acting schools across the world. But beyond the accolades lies something deeper. Resilience. He faced early loneliness. He faced career risks. He faced public scrutiny. He faced personal heartbreak. He faced aging in an industry obsessed with youth, and he remained. He remained committed, he remained curious, he remained willing to step into darkness and bring back truth. The boy who once felt different became the man who made difference powerful. And still, his story is not finished. The weight of becoming there is a moment in every great life when the applause fades, when the cameras turn away, when the noise softens into a distant hum, and a man is left alone with his own reflection. For Robert Anthony De Niro Jr., that reflection has never been simple. It has never been comfortable. It has always carried layers of memory, sacrifice, discipline, and the quiet question that follows every achievement: what did it cost? By the time the world entered the new millennium, De Niro had already lived several artistic lifetimes. He had been the volatile street criminal, the haunted veteran, the disciplined thief, the jealous boxer, the calculating gangster, the grieving father, the comic patriarch. Each role had demanded a different fragment of his inner world, and he had given those fragments willingly, sometimes recklessly. But as the years advanced, something within him began to shift. Age does not diminish intensity, it reshapes it. In his later performances, there was a new gravity in his eyes, a stillness, a sense that he was no longer proving anything to anyone. The hunger of youth had matured into something steadier, something reflective. The fire still burned, but it was controlled, contained, directed with wisdom rather than fury. Yet life outside the screen continued to test him. Relationships evolved, sometimes painfully. His marriage to Grace Hightower experienced public separations and reconciliations that unfolded beneath the relentless scrutiny of headlines. Divorce proceedings became stories, financial details became speculation, private conversations became public commentary. Fame magnifies everything, even silence, even grief, even uncertainty. In 2011, De Niro faced a deeply personal loss when his father's legacy required renewed attention. Robert De Niro, Sr., who had passed away in 1993 from cancer, had lived much of his life underappreciated in the broader art world. Though respected within artistic circles, he never received the widespread recognition his talent deserved. For De Niro, honoring his father became more than a tribute. It became a mission. He produced documentaries, he curated exhibitions. He spoke openly about his father's struggles as a gay artist in a time that was far less forgiving than the present. It was a vulnerable act. It required him to share family history that had once remained private. In doing so, he revealed something profound. Behind the hardened characters, behind the legendary performances, was a son who loved his father deeply. A son who understood that brilliance does not always receive applause in its own lifetime. A son who refused to let that brilliance fade into obscurity. That devotion speaks louder than any award. Meanwhile, the film industry itself was transforming. Digital effects began reshaping storytelling. Streaming platforms disrupted traditional cinema. Younger actors emerged, bringing new styles, new energies, new rhythms. Some veterans resist change. De Niro adapted. In The Irishman, released in 2019, technology allowed audiences to witness him portray a character across decades. The de-aging effects were groundbreaking, but beneath the digital surface lay something entirely human. Frank Sheeran was not a glamorous gangster. He was a man looking back on a life of violence and loyalty with an almost unbearable quietness. The final scenes of that film lingered like a whisper. An elderly man alone in a nursing home, door slightly open, waiting for connection, waiting for forgiveness, waiting for the inevitable. It did not feel like a performance. It felt like meditation. Mortality has a way of softening even the strongest voices, and while Robert De Niro remains alive, active, and engaged in his craft, his later roles often carry an awareness of time that cannot be faked. It is the awareness of someone who has seen eras rise and fall. Someone who has buried friends, colleagues, mentors. Someone who understands that legacies are fragile unless protected. His co-founder role in the Tribeca Film Festival continues to stand as one of his most enduring contributions beyond acting. Established in 2002 as a response to the devastation of September 11, Tribeca was born from grief but built on hope. Lower Manhattan had been wounded physically and emotionally. Businesses struggled. Artists scattered. De Niro chose to rebuild through culture, through storytelling, through gathering people in dark rooms to watch light flicker on screens again. That decision required courage. It required financial risk. It required belief in community at a time when fear dominated headlines. Today, Tribeca is not merely an event. It is a symbol of resilience, and resilience defines his journey. Of course, no long career escapes criticism. Some films in his later years were dismissed as commercial or uneven. Critics questioned certain choices. Online commentary can be harsh, unforgiving, sometimes cruel. But legends are not measured by perfection. They are measured by endurance. And De Niro's endurance is undeniable. He has navigated political discourse publicly, voicing strong opinions in a polarized era. Speaking openly carries consequences, applause from some, anger from others, but whether admired or criticized, he has never hidden behind neutrality when conviction stirred within him. Conviction has always fueled him. It fueled the young man studying dialects in Sicily for The Godfather Part 9. It fueled the boxer training until his body ached for Raging Bull. It fueled the intensity behind Travis Bickle's Restless Eyes. It fueled the discipline of Neil Macaulay's Solitude. It fueled the compassion of a father trying to understand his son in Silver Linings Playbook. And it fuels him still. There is something deeply human about watching a legend age in real time. The face changes, the posture shifts, the voice gains texture, but the essence remains. In De Niro's case, that essence is commitment. It is seriousness toward craft. It is respect for storytelling. He has never treated acting as celebrity. He has treated it as labor, sacred labor. When young actors speak of him, they often mention his preparation, his quiet focus, his willingness to rehearse relentlessly, his insistence on authenticity. These qualities are not flashy. They do not generate viral headlines, but they generate truth on screen, and truth endures. Today, Robert De Niro stands as one of the defining figures of American cinema. Born in 1943 in Manhattan, raised in the artistic currents of Greenwich Village, shaped by parental separation, strengthened by discipline, scarred by emotional excavation, refined by decades of reinvention, he represents something rare. He represents longevity without surrender. He represents vulnerability disguised as strength. He represents the power of embracing darkness in order to illuminate it for others. When audiences watch his films, they are not just witnessing entertainment. They are witnessing decades of lived experience channeled into narrative form. They are witnessing a boy once teased for being different transform difference into dominance. They are witnessing a man who could have taken safer paths choose instead to walk through fire. And that fire never consumed him. It forged him. Robert De Niro is not defined by a single performance. He is defined by persistence, by artistic bravery, by the refusal to repeat himself simply for comfort, by the willingness to risk criticism in pursuit of growth. The cameras may eventually stop rolling, time will eventually demand rest, but the body of work he leaves behind will continue breathing in dark theaters, in living rooms, in film schools, in quiet nights when someone presses play seeking something real, and in that flicker of light his presence will remain. Because legends are not carved from applause, they are carved from survival. The man behind the myth, when a man becomes a legend, the world begins to treat him as if he were made of stone, as if emotion no longer touches him, as if struggle belongs only to the early chapters of his life. But Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. has never been stone. Beneath the granite exterior that audiences associate with his most powerful roles lives a deeply sensitive observer of humanity, a man shaped by art, memory, loyalty, and an unshakable sense of responsibility. Responsibility to his craft, responsibility to his family, responsibility to the city that raised him. New York has always been more than a backdrop in De Niro's life. It has been a living character in his story. From the streets of Little Italy to the creative pulse of Greenwich Village, the city's rhythm shaped his instincts. The noise, the energy, the unpredictability, the layered cultures all found their way into his performances. When he plays a New Yorker, he is not acting, he is remembering. That connection to place is why he fought so fiercely for Lower Manhattan after September 11, 2001. The attacks did not just damage buildings, they fractured the emotional fabric of the city. Fear lingered in the air. Businesses struggled, artists felt displaced, the heartbeat of downtown slowed. De Niro refused to let it fade. The creation of the Tribeca Film Festival was not a publicity move, it was an act of defiance against despair. It was a declaration that storytelling would not be silenced. He invested not only money but time, influence, and personal commitment. He walked the streets. He spoke with business owners. He attended screenings not as a distant celebrity, but as a citizen determined to rebuild community. That dedication reveals something essential about him. He does not detach from his environment. He engages with it. He invests in it. He protects it. At the same time, his personal life continued to evolve in complex ways. Parenthood remained central to his identity. Over the decades, he became a father multiple times, embracing the joys and challenges that come with raising children across different stages of life. Fatherhood softened certain edges within him. It required patience, humility, and an acceptance that control is often an illusion. Raising children in the public eye is not simple. Privacy becomes fragile. Speculation becomes relentless. Yet De Niro consistently guarded his family's personal world with intensity. He rarely offered intimate details in interviews. He kept boundaries firm. That silence was not secrecy for its own sake. It was protection. Protection of innocence. Protection of normalcy. Protection of love from becoming spectacle. In interviews, when he does speak about family, his tone shifts. The intensity that defines his on-screen personas gives way to warmth. His voice becomes reflective, measured, almost tender. It is in those moments that the myth fades and the man emerges. The man who once felt abandoned by early separation understood the value of presence. The man who once wandered uncertain streets understood the importance of guidance. The man who once battled internal doubt understood the necessity of reassurance. As the film industry changed rapidly in the 2010s and beyond, De Niro faced the inevitable reality that no career remains static. Streaming platforms disrupted theatrical traditions. Social media altered celebrity culture. Younger audiences discovered cinema through different lenses. He could have resisted. He could have retreated. Instead, he continued working. Films such as Joker in 2019 allowed him to engage with contemporary storytelling while subtly echoing his past. His role as Murray Franklin felt almost like a mirror reflecting the king of comedy decades earlier. Life had come full circle in a quiet, cinematic way. The student of satire had become its elder statesman. In each new role, he brought not only technique but history. Directors who worked with him often described his preparation as meticulous. He read deeply, he researched thoroughly. He asked questions others might overlook. He cared about motivation, about psychological grounding, about authenticity in the smallest gestures. That level of commitment is rare in any profession. It is rarer still after decades of success. Awards have followed him across the years. 2 Academy Awards, Golden Globes, BAFTA Honors, the Cecil B. DeMille Award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom awarded in 2016. Each recognition symbolizes respect from peers and institutions. Yet when observing him during acceptance speeches, one notices something consistent. He does not bask. He acknowledges. He thanks collaborators. He moves forward. There is no sense that he views achievement as a rival. Instead, it feels like continuation, as if the work itself matters more than the trophy attached to it. Perhaps that mindset originates from his upbringing among artists. Painters understand that each canvas is temporary. Once finished, it belongs to the world. The artist must begin again. There is humility in that cycle. De Niro inherited that humility, but even legends encounter vulnerability that cannot be rehearsed. As he entered his late 70s and early 80s, health naturally became a consideration. Aging is not a dramatic event. It is gradual. It whispers rather than shouts. Energy fluctuates. Recovery slows. Reflection deepens. Yet even in advanced age, De Niro remained active. He embraced fatherhood again, later in life, demonstrating that vitality is not measured solely by years, but by engagement. His presence at film festivals, public events, and interviews carried the calm confidence of someone who has already faced his hardest battles. Looking back at his life from birth in 1943 to the present, one sees not a straight line but a series of waves: early insecurity, artistic breakthrough, physical transformation, emotional excavation, reinvention, cultural leadership, private devotion. Through it all, one theme remains constant. He never avoided complexity. He never chose the easy interpretation of a character. He never simplified humanity for convenience. That is why his performances endure, because human beings are not simple. They are layered, contradictory, wounded, and strong at the same time. Robert De Niro understands that paradox intimately. He has lived it. He has portrayed it. He has honored it. When future generations study cinema, they will analyze his technique. They will examine his collaborations with Martin Scorsese as one of the greatest director-actor partnerships in history. They will reference Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, The Godfather Part DIZ, Goodfellas, Heat, The Irishman as pillars of storytelling. But beyond analysis lies something deeper: emotion. Audiences remember how he made them feel. The tension in a quiet stare, the heartbreak in restrained tears, the menace in stillness, the unexpected humor in deadpan delivery. These emotional imprints are his true legacy. Robert Anthony De Niro Jr., born in Manhattan in 1943, raised by artists, shaped by separation, forged by discipline, transformed by risk, remains not merely an actor but a chronicler of human intensity. His life reminds us that greatness does not emerge from comfort. It emerges from confrontation with fear, from dedication to craft, from loyalty to roots, from the refusal to surrender to mediocrity. The boy who once felt fragile became a man who could embody strength without losing sensitivity. The teenager who wandered uncertain streets became a guardian of cultural institutions. The young actor who doubted his place became a reference point for excellence. And even now, as years accumulate and history expands, his story continues unfolding. Because legends are not defined by endings. They are defined by the echoes they leave behind. And Robert De Niro's echo is powerful, resonant, and enduring. Echoes that never fade. There comes a stage in a man's life when the world begins to measure him not by what he might become, but by what he has already built. For Robert Anthony De Niro Jr., that stage did not arrive suddenly. It arrived slowly, almost quietly, like evening settling over a city skyline. The noise did not disappear, but it softened. The expectations did not vanish, but they transformed into something steadier, something rooted in respect rather than anticipation. Yet even in that phase of reflection, the fire inside him never truly dimmed. To understand Robert De Niro fully, one must understand the paradox that defines him. He is both intensely private and profoundly expressive. He rarely reveals his inner world in interviews, yet he has exposed the darkest corners of human emotion through his characters. He guards his personal life carefully. Yet he has allowed audiences to witness rage, vulnerability, obsession, tenderness, and regret through performances that feel almost autobiographical in their honesty. This duality has followed him from the very beginning. Born on August 17, 1943, in Manhattan, New York, he entered a world already shaped by artistic ambition. His father, Robert De Niro Sr., was a respected abstract expressionist painter whose work carried bold colors and emotional turbulence. His mother, Virginia Admiral, was a painter and poet whose sensitivity influenced the atmosphere of their home. Creativity surrounded him, but so did complexity. His parents' separation when he was only 2 years old created an early awareness of emotional fracture. Although his father remained present in his life, the structure of family had already shifted before he could fully understand what that meant. That early understanding of separation may explain why so many of his characters wrestle with isolation. Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver moves through crowded streets, yet feels entirely alone. Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull stands in a roaring arena, but fights battles inside himself that no crowd can see. Neil McCauley in Heat lives by a code that demands emotional detachment. These men are not simply fictional creations. They are reflections of an actor who understands what it means to feel apart from the world even while standing inside it. As he matured into one of the most respected actors in American cinema, De Niro never sought celebrity in the traditional sense. He did not chase flamboyant public personas. He did not cultivate controversy for attention. He focused on work. The discipline of preparation became his anchor. He learned accents meticulously. He changed his body without hesitation. He immersed himself in research that would exhaust many performers. For The Godfather Part Thai AC, he lived in Sicily to perfect the dialect and cultural nuance of a young Vito Corleone. For Raging Bull, he transformed physically in a way that permanently altered how actors approached method commitment. That level of dedication reshaped the industry's expectations. Suddenly, preparation became a measure of seriousness. Transformation became a mark of authenticity. De Niro did not invent method acting, but he elevated it in the public imagination. He proved that acting could be an act of sacrifice. But sacrifice carries consequences. The psychological weight of inhabiting violent, unstable, or morally conflicted characters does not disappear the moment a scene ends. When an actor dives deeply into darkness, the mind must navigate its way back to balance. Over the years, De Niro spoke sparingly about the toll certain roles took on him, but those close to the industry recognized the intensity he endured. Yet he continued, because for him, acting was never superficial, it was exploration. In later decades, as he moved between dramatic roles and comedic performances, some critics attempted to categorize his career in phases. They spoke of the gritty 1970s, the powerful 1990s, the comedic 2000s, the reflective 2010s. But such labels oversimplify a life that has never followed a neat structure. Even in lighter roles, there remains a trace of depth in his delivery. Even in serious dramas, there can be flickers of subtle humor. He does not divide himself into compartments. He carries his full emotional range into every project. The Irishman, released in 2019, stands as one of his most contemplative performances. As Frank Sheeran, he portrays a man looking back on decades of loyalty, violence, and moral compromise. The film unfolds not with explosive spectacle, but with quiet reckoning. The most haunting moments are not the gunshots or confrontations, but the silences, the pauses, the realization that power fades, that friendships dissolve, that time cannot be negotiated. In those final scenes, when Frank sits alone in a nursing home room with the door slightly open, there is a sense of life circling back to its simplest truth. We enter the world alone, and often we leave it the same way. De Niro's performance does not demand tears from the audience. It invites reflection. It invites them to ask themselves what remains when ambition and reputation fade. That invitation is part of his legacy. Beyond film, his contribution to cultural recovery after September 11 through the Tribeca Film Festival remains one of his most significant acts of civic leadership. Establishing a festival in a wounded neighborhood required optimism when optimism felt fragile. It required belief in art as healing. It required a willingness to invest in community rather than retreat into personal safety. Over the years, Tribeca has grown into a platform for emerging filmmakers, diverse voices, and global storytelling. It stands not only as an artistic institution, but as evidence that De Niro's impact extends beyond performance. In his personal life, he has embraced fatherhood across different generations, demonstrating that family evolves alongside career. Becoming a father again later in life illustrates his enduring engagement with growth and responsibility. Parenthood reshapes perspective. It humbles ambition. It anchors a person in daily reality beyond fame and public narrative. As the years advance, conversations about legacy naturally emerge. Critics analyze rankings. Scholars write essays. Fans debate favorite performances. Awards are cataloged. Honors are listed. But legacy cannot be measured solely in trophies. It is measured in influence. It is measured in how many actors cite him as inspiration. It is measured in how many filmmakers study his collaborations with Martin Scorsese as a masterclass in trust between director and performer. It is measured in memory. Memory of a line delivered with perfect timing. Memory of a glance that conveyed more than dialogue ever could. Memory of transformation so complete that the actor seemed to vanish. Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. remains alive, continuing to work, continuing to speak, continuing to evolve. There is no final chapter yet, no closing frame, no concluding narration over a fading image. His story is ongoing. That is perhaps the most powerful element of all. He is not a legend because his story ended. He is a legend because his story continues with integrity. From a shy boy nicknamed Bobby Milk to a two-time Academy Award winner, from a young actor struggling for recognition to a cultural pillar of American cinema, his journey reveals that greatness is rarely loud in its origins. It begins quietly, it grows through discipline, it survives through resilience. And when history looks back at the landscape of film in the 20th and 21st centuries, one figure will stand firmly among the giants. Not because he sought the spotlight, but because he earned it through relentless dedication. Robert De Niro's life reminds us that art is not escape from darkness. Art is confrontation with it. It is the courage to step into human complexity and return with something truthful. It is the willingness to reveal vulnerability beneath strength. It is the discipline to remain curious even after decades of success. A legacy still breathing there is something extraordinary about witnessing a legend while he is still walking among us, still creating, still evolving. So often, society waits until a life has ended to measure its significance. We build tributes after silence. We speak reverently after absence. But Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. stands as a rare example of a legacy that has unfolded in real time, visible across decades, tangible in performance after performance. He was born in 1943 in Manhattan, raised in a world shaped by art and emotional complexity. He survived childhood separation, social isolation, uncertainty about identity, and the quiet loneliness that often shadows sensitive souls. He navigated the streets of New York at a time when danger was not abstract but immediate. He found refuge in acting not because it promised fame, but because it offered understanding. Acting allowed him to observe humanity without being overwhelmed by it. It gave structure to emotion, it gave direction to intensity, it gave voice to thoughts he might never have spoken as himself. When he emerged in the 1970s as one of the defining faces of American cinema, it did not happen by accident. It was the result of study, discipline, immersion, and risk. Taxi Driver did not merely shock audiences, it forced them to confront alienation in modern society. Raging Bull did not simply depict a boxer's life, it explored jealousy, insecurity, and self-destruction with brutal honesty. The Godfather Part Die did not rely on nostalgia, it deepened a mythos through quiet power and calculated restraint. These were not safe projects. They were demanding, controversial, and emotionally raw, and De Niro chose them deliberately. That willingness to choose complexity over comfort defines his career. As time passed, he refused to remain confined within a single archetype. Goodfellas presented him as controlled and calculating. Cape Fear turned him into a figure of chilling obsession. Heat placed him opposite Al Pacino in a performance that felt like cinematic history unfolding in real time. Analyze This allowed him to laugh at his own intensity. Meet the Parents introduced him to younger audiences who knew nothing of Travis Bickle, but instantly recognized his presence. Reinvention is not betrayal of legacy, it is preservation of relevance, and he preserved it. Beyond performance, he expanded his influence into production, direction, and cultural leadership. The founding of the Tribeca Film Festival after the devastation of September 11 stands as a defining chapter in his life. It was not about prestige, it was about healing. It was about reminding a wounded city that art still mattered, that gathering together in theaters still mattered, that stories could restore what violence tried to fracture. Over the years, Tribeca has grown into an international celebration of storytelling, embracing voices from around the world. Through it, De Niro has supported emerging artists, amplified underrepresented narratives, and reinforced the idea that cinema is not merely entertainment but connection. His honors reflect his stature. 2 Academy Awards recognize his transformative performances. Numerous Golden Globes and other accolades affirm his influence. In 2016, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the highest civilian honors in the United States, acknowledging not only artistic excellence but cultural impact. They are milestones along a path that continues forward. What truly defines him is consistency of commitment. Directors who collaborate with him speak of his preparation as meticulous and respectful. Fellow actors describe the intensity he brings to rehearsal, the way he listens as deeply as he speaks. Younger performers observe him not as a relic of a past era, but as an active craftsman still refining his approach. That humility in the face of greatness is rare. In later years, he has taken on roles that reflect maturity and introspection. Silver Linings Playbook showed him as a father struggling to connect with his son, revealing warmth beneath sternness. The Irishman presented him as a man facing the long shadow of his own decisions. Even in films where he plays supporting roles, his presence carries weight that cannot be manufactured. Age has not diminished his gravity, it has deepened it. He continues to engage publicly when conviction moves him. In an era of polarization, he has voiced strong opinions, accepting that speaking openly invites both support and criticism. Whether one agrees with his views or not, his willingness to express them reflects a belief in responsibility that extends beyond film. Responsibility has shaped every stage of his life. Responsibility to honor his father's artistic legacy by producing documentaries and preserving his work. Responsibility to protect his family's privacy while nurturing his children's futures. Responsibility to contribute to his city's cultural vitality. Responsibility to approach each role with seriousness, even when the genre shifts. There is a quiet courage in that consistency. It would have been easy to coast on reputation. It would have been easy to rely on nostalgia. It would have been easy to accept superficial roles for financial gain alone. Instead, De Niro has continued searching for projects that challenge him in new ways. And that search reveals something essential about his character. He is still curious. Curiosity keeps artists alive. It prevents stagnation. It will stand prominently among the defining figures who shaped the language of modern acting. His collaborations with Martin Scorsese will be studied as one of the greatest creative partnerships in film history. His dedication to method preparation will be referenced as a benchmark for authenticity. His ability to balance intensity with vulnerability will remain a model for generations to come. Yet, beyond academic analysis, there is something simpler and more powerful. He made audiences feel. He made them uncomfortable when discomfort was necessary. He made them laugh when laughter broke tension. He made them confront parts of humanity they might prefer to ignore. He made them see complexity where stereotypes once stood. That emotional resonance is the true measure of a legend. Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. is not defined by a single line of dialogue, even though some lines have become iconic. He is not defined by a single award, even though awards decorate his history. He is defined by endurance, discipline, risk, and a relentless pursuit of authenticity. His story began with a shy child navigating separation in Manhattan. It evolved into a young actor studying under masters of craft. It expanded into a cinematic force reshaping expectations. It matured into a cultural leader rebuilding community. And it continues today as an elder statesman of film whose presence still commands respect. The screen has captured many faces over the decades, but few have carried such layered intensity. Few have remained relevant across generations without losing integrity. Few have balanced privacy and public influence with such careful attention. Robert De Niro's life reminds us that greatness is not an accident. It is the result of discipline sustained over time. It is the courage to explore darkness without becoming consumed by it. It is the willingness to evolve without abandoning one's roots. The boy once called Bobby Milk became a name spoken with reverence in film schools, in award ceremonies, in conversations about art. The shy observer became the master of presence. The uncertain teenager became the standard by which intensity is measured. And still, he moves forward. Still, he creates. Still, he stands as proof that legends are not built in a single moment. They are built across a lifetime. And Robert De Niro's lifetime of work continues to illuminate the screen, reminding us that true artistry does not fade with time. It deepens, it echoes, it endures. The silence between the applause there is a certain kind of silence that follows greatness. It is not the silence of absence, nor the silence of obscurity. It is the silence that lives between applause, the quiet space where a man sits alone after the lights dim and asks himself whether he has done justice to the story he was entrusted to tell. Robert Anthony De Niro Jr. has lived inside that silence for decades. The world has watched him inhabit gangsters, loners, fathers, criminals, protectors, mentors, and men undone by their own flaws. The world has memorized his lines, quoted his scenes, studied his technique, but the world does not often see the in-between moments, the hours of preparation, the solitude of reflection, the weight of responsibility that comes with carrying cultural history on one's shoulders. By the time he reached his later years, De Niro was no longer simply an actor working in Hollywood.